Welcome to a Legendarium special about Samhain, the Celtic holiday that inspired Halloween. In this episode, we will learn about how the Celts celebrated the beginning of the dark half of the year. Samhain is one of 4 Celtic seasonal festivals along with Imbolc, Beltane, and Lughsand. They began 2,000 years ago in modern-day Ireland, Scotland, Wales, northern France, and even parts of England like the Isle of Man. This holiday is usually celebrated from October 31st to November 1st to welcome the harvest and begin the dark half of the year. Celebrants believe that the barriers between the physical world and other world break down during Samhain, which allows the spirits into earth. Ancient Celts marked Samhain as the most important of the 4 quarterly fire festivals, taking place at the midpoint between fall equinox and winter solstice, a sign of how the Celts venerated the stars. Families allowed the hearth fires in their houses to burn out while they gathered the harvest, and afterwards celebrants joined with the Druids to light community balefires using a wheel that sparked flames by frictions. Celebrants saw the wheel as a symbol of the life-giving sun. During Samhain, Celts decorated their cattle with flower garlands and then sacrificed them, sometimes by driving them into the balefires. Christian writers later claimed that some villages sacrificed children before stone idols, but this is not known for certain. Participants then took flame from the communal balefire back home to relight their darkened hearth. Since the barrier between our world and other world could be breached during Samhain, people prepared offerings left outside villages for spirits and fairies. Celts especially feared a shape-shifting creature called the Puca, which collected harvest offerings from the field. Dullahan, a headless man on horseback who carried around his head and rode a flame-eyed horse, and anyone who saw him would soon die. The Lady Gwyn, a headless woman who dressed in white and was always accompanied by a black pig, would chase night wanderers. Expecting for restless spirits to be roaming, Celts would dress as animals and monsters so that the likes of Lady Gwyn would not kidnap them. Revelers used the bones, skin, and fur of slaughtered livestock to create creepy outfits the likes of which we still see today. Such garb would frighten off the Dullahan and other foul creatures of the night. During the 3 days that followed, people drank mead and beer in great quantities and gorged themselves at huge feasts. Celtic nations typically culled their cattle herds, which would likely not survive the winter, so huge amounts of roasted beef would be available for the eating. Storytelling became a cherished feature of the Samhain holiday. One of the most popular Samhain stories told of the Second Battle of Mag Tuired. This described the final conflict between the Celtic gods and evil oppressors known as the Foam War. The myth states that the battle would unfold during Samhain. Another famous Samhain-related story involves the hero Nera, who encountered a corpse and then a group of fairies and then plunged into Otherworld. A third Samhain tale tells of a dead man returning from Otherworld to burn people to death after lulling them to sleep. Along with being a religious festival, Samhain also allowed people to show themselves to local kings or chieftains. Failure to join in the holiday and show yourself meant bringing the gods' anger upon the community, which could lead to illness or death. As the Middle Ages progressed, so did the fire festivals. Christian missionaries during late antiquity tended to tolerate the continuation of pagan festivals, preferring to Christianize them. During the 5th century, Pope Boniface moved the celebration to May 13th and specified it as a day celebrating saints and martyrs. Unfortunately, the Celtic peoples of Britain and France simply continued the fire festivals at their usual time. So in the 9th century, Pope Gregory moved the celebration back to the time of the fire festivals and declared it All Saints' Day, which fell on November 1st. All Souls' Day followed on November 2nd. Yet people who attended Mass and took communion still believed in otherworld, fairies, and fantastic creatures. Samhains, or smaller and more personal Samhain fires kept near the farms, became a new tradition. Carved turnips called jack-o'-lanterns also began to appear, attached by strings to sticks and embedded with coal. The Irish believed that carving demonic faces into these objects would frighten away evil spirits. Some believe this comes from an earlier tradition in which Celtic warriors chopped off the heads of their enemies and then mounted the severed heads outside their huts to drive away evil spirits. In Wales, men participated in violent games like tossing burning wood at one another and setting off fireworks. Guising, or going from door to door in disguise, became part of Samhain tradition from the 1500s onward. In Ireland, it became traditional for a man covered in a white sheet and carrying a decorated horse skull to lead a group of youths, all of them blowing cow horns, from farm to farm. There they demanded treats, or else they would make tricks. October 31st became known as All Hallows Eve, or Halloween, and continued most of the traditional pagan practices. Of course, this could prove a bit awkward in a strongly Christian world, and this sometimes led to frightful misunderstandings. Charles Vallancey, a British military surveyor and amateur historian who visited Ireland in 1762 while on a surveying mission, wrote of the region. Unfortunately, he wrote wrongly of the Samhain holiday, claiming that the Irish celebrated a devil god named Lord Samhain and carried out human sacrifices. Of course, when the Irish moved to North America by the hundreds of thousands during the potato famine in the 1840s, they brought Samhain traditions with them to the United States. In time, they evolved into the holiday of Halloween that we know and love today. Given that it inspired Halloween, Samhain features in a number of horror franchises, including the Halloween series starring Donald Pleasance. Many neo-pagans today copy the historic customs of Samhain and try to reconstruct festivities as accurately as possible. This often involves praising the dead at a small shrine where a meal is placed down to invite the dead to dinner. Deathly songs, poems, and dances are performed before candles left burning to guide the dead home. And so it seems that the spirits continue to roam Earth 2,000 years later come Halloween time. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.